What is up, my wholesome lifers? Welcome back. My name is Kira if you're new here. And today we're doing a different style of video. We are going to react to one of the most popular vegan videos that pops up on YouTube. It has almost 1 million views. It is from AsapSCIENCE, and he's talking about the biggest lies of veganism. He has 10 million subscribers, and this video has gotten a lot of traction. So I thought I wanted to just give my reaction to this video for you guys as someone who's been plant-based since 2017. And just kind of see what he's talking about and let you guys know my opinion of it.
So let's dive in. First up, is going vegan better for the environment? This is the easy part of the video because the answer is super simple. Yes. Point blank, yes. Avoiding meat and dairy products has...
I love that he says this first because actually the environmental aspect was one of the main reasons that I became plant-based in the beginning. It was the biggest reason why I became vegetarian, or at the beginning I actually went like part-time vegetarian and then fully vegetarian. So yes, it is a process, but I love that he talks about how it is absolutely the best thing for the environment because 100% there's so many studies and it's so true. Like literally being vegan, having no consumption of dairy or meat products and not using dairy or meat products in your day-to-day life is just so much better for the environment. I could try and spit out some facts for you, but I think he's probably going to get into some here.
Has a major impact on the environment. Study after study after study has found that a vegan diet as compared to a full-on meat-eating or omnivorous diet or even a vegetarian diet uses less land, conserves more water, and produces less greenhouse gases by about 70 to 80% compared to omnivorous diets. And that's a huge difference. Now, that's not to say every vegan food is created equal. We have an entire video breaking down which alternative milk is the best for the environment, and even there you can see that something like almond milk takes a lot more water to create than other alternatives. But on the whole, transition...
Okay, the almond milk thing here, a lot of people tell me that. They're like, oh, well, you must not care about the environment if you still drink almond milk. It takes way less water than dairy milk does, like way less. I'm not sure exactly how much, but at least 2/3 less. So it's still, as far as the worst plant milk, it's still pretty damn good.
Switching to a vegan or even vegetarian diet will significantly decrease your personal impact on the planet. Of course, simply reducing your meat and dairy consumption can also make a difference, so it doesn't have to be so black and white. But full stop, a vegan diet is better for the environment and the future of our planet. Alright, on to the more complicated subject of diet. Interestingly, some of the first athletes on a strict plant-based diet were the gladiators. All fighters' diets contained large amounts of legumes, pulses, and grains, and contained little to no animal protein. But it's only recently that research has delved into the question of whether or not a vegan diet can not only enhance athletic ability, but bolster overall health in the long term. One of the big questions that comes up a lot is, did we evolve as vegetarians or meat eaters? I mean, we've got these sharp canine teeth that look just perfect for digging into flesh, though large canines are not exclusive to carnivorous animals. It's thought they likely evolved more for intimidation and competition among mates, as well as defense, rather than for eating meat. And if we look at the diets of modern primates, the ones we're closely related to, like chimps, orangutans, and gorillas, you'll see that most of them have totally plant-based diets. I love thinking about chimps being hipster vegans like, oh, you don't have any soy milk? Awkward. But seriously, if gorillas can get this jacked without the need for animal proteins, surely we're not meant to be eating.
Yes, the fact that gorillas are massive and all they eat is plants literally says to the fact that, like, how do they get their protein? They get it from plants. And we are definitely the closest related to, like you said, gorillas, chimpanzees, monkeys. And we don't have these canines, like a lion has real canines for chewing meat, for eating like raw meat, whereas we just have these tiny little things that are actually better for like chewing vegetables. And the fact that gorillas can get this big, think of the strongest animals on the planet, bulls, elephants, they're all plant eaters. They all eat plants and they get their protein from plants. So if you are trying to be the strongest, human out there, or if you're a bodybuilder, look into getting your protein from plants because it is possible and these super strong animals are proof of that. So I love that he said this.
meat. I mean, look at those muscles. Me throwing to our video on bestiality. Anyway, many suggest that because we branch off the same evolutionary tree as our primate contemporaries, surely we're also primarily vegetarian. We've also got bumpy colons, which sounds very sexy, whereas carnivorous animals typically have a smooth colon. But despite all these facts, the truth is there is no denying that our species turned to eating meat regularly. In fact, scientists estimate that our ancestors started eating meat around 2 million years ago, long before Homo sapiens even existed. We've even found fossilized animal bones that were cut up for dinner that are around 2.5 million years old. It's theorized that somewhere along the way our environment changed. We weren't in a tropical forest anymore and didn't have access to as many plants that we could stomach, so we turned to meat to supplement that loss. And of course, there are many theories about how meat shaped the human brain, but for now, all we need to know is that while we do come from plant eaters, we have been eating meat for millions of years.
I think this is a weird point because just because our ancestors did it 2 million years ago doesn't mean that we should be doing it now. It doesn't make it ethical, it doesn't make it right, especially the way that animals are being processed is just honestly horrible these days. Putting into gas chambers, their throats being cut when they're still alive, like macerating, like grinding alive baby male chicks, like for the egg industry. So just because we did it 2 million years ago doesn't make it right to do it now. It just means that yes, there is proof and evidence that we did eat meat. Of course we can eat meat, of course we can stomach it, we can survive off of it, but it doesn't mean that it's the best thing to do from an ethical, moral standpoint as well.
As long as we've been human, we've been eating meat. So then, can we survive without meat at all? Some people might tell you that you simply can't get enough protein without meat, but that's really not true. You can get tons of protein from whole grains, nuts, and beans, and for most people, this is more than enough. In fact, most research finds protein deficiency extremely rare, except in people who are simply not eating enough calories. But what research has found is missing from a vegan diet is B12. Vitamin B12 is required by animals for a whole host of biological pathways and for normal functioning. And the thing is,
okay, I don't know exactly what he's going to say here, but I just want to say first that B12 comes from the soil, it comes from dirt. So animals, when you're getting your B12 from animal products, you're actually getting it because that animal ate dirt that had the B12 in it. And even these days with factory farming, animals aren't getting enough B12, so they're actually supplementing the animal with B12, and then you're eating the animal. So really, you're just getting the supplement from the animal, as opposed to vegans who just take the supplement. So he's probably going to say that maybe supplements are bad, or I don't know. But as a vegan, you're really just cutting out the middleman. You're cutting out needing to eat cow or pig or chicken with B12 supplemented, and you're actually just taking the supplement. So let's see what he says.
Is you cannot get B12 from any vegetables. There's zero B12 in a salad. You can find it in beef, pork, poultry, fish, eggs, etc. And studies find that B12 deficiencies are a big problem for a lot of vegans and vegetarians when your levels are.
Also, B12 is actually a big deficiency for even meat eaters. So because these days, like I said, the animals that you're eating aren't getting the B12. So if you're buying animal products who aren't getting supplemented B12 into their animals, then you probably are also B12 deficient. So even meat eaters these days should be testing their blood for B12. So just be careful of that.
Are low, it can impact brain functioning, energy, and mood, and at worst, it can cause full-on hallucinations. I mean, if that's what you're going for, maybe just try some psilocybin instead. Me throwing to our video on shrooms. So if you're only consuming fruits and vegetables, it'll likely become a problem. Luckily, supplements are a thing. You can literally just take B12 pills and then you never have to worry about this. The same can be said for other nutrient deficiencies that tend to pop up for vegans, like iron or omega-3s. There's even a ton of foods that are fortified with these to make vegan diets less of a risk. But another area that brings up some concern is bone strength. If you grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, then you're more than aware of the many campaigns.
So he mentioned omega-3s or omegas for a little while. That is also another supplement that I think is just very misunderstood. So a lot of people get their omega-3s from eating fish, but the fish actually get the omega-3s from eating algae. So the omega-3 is actually in the algae, not the fish. So again, as a vegan, when you're taking an omega-3 supplement, you're just cutting out that middleman and you're literally taking an algae supplement. So it's coming directly from the algae. You don't have to eat the fish to get it. you're just eating it directly from the source. So hopefully that's a helpful tip for you.
Touting the health benefits of milk. Calcium is an essential part of the human diet because it helps your muscles and nerves function properly and keeps your bones good and strong. And when you don't have enough in your diet, your body actually ends up pulling it from your bones, which can potentially make your bones more likely to break. Hence, cow's milk, which naturally contains calcium and is absorbed easily into the body, is often promoted for good, strong bones. And a research study from 2020 backed this up when it found that vegans have a much higher risk of breaking their bones than meat eaters. This was a study that followed around 2,000 vegans and compared them to non-vegans over the course of a few decades, and their risk of bone breaks was basically twice as likely. But here's the weird part. When we look at countries that simply don't drink as much milk as a whole, this pattern doesn't hold. For example, in West Africa, consumption of dairy isn't that common, and yet they have extremely low rates of osteoporosis, like a fraction of a percent. And a study that compared 40 countries' consumption of dairy also found that those who had little milk were not any more likely to break their hips. Even studies within the same.
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception that people think that you can only get calcium from milk products or dairy products, but tofu actually has 3 times the amount of calcium as milk products. And there's so many other vegan options to get calcium. Like I think like lots of greens have it. Like honestly, it's so much easier to get calcium than you think. Like, so the fact that yes, these countries that don't even eat or drink milk products don't have any fractures in bone, like don't have any higher fractures in their bones, definitely is saying something. And probably that one study that followed 2,000 vegans, like maybe they were more like junk food vegans and they weren't eating all the calcium. So I'm really not sure about that. But yeah, you do not need milk or dairy to get calcium.
Same country have found confusing results. When comparing heavy milk drinkers to light milk drinkers, there's really not a clear link between bone strength and breakage. The truth is, dairy isn't the only way to consume calcium. It's in lots of veggies like kale, bok choy, and broccoli, and there's even fortified foods like orange juice and cereal that contain it. But for vegans, even when studies account for calcium intake, those who were eating lots of calcium were still more likely to break bones. So perhaps there is another environmental or situational factor outside of diet that's playing a role here and is yet unknown. It's worth bringing up that most of this data is on adults, and studies that do look at kids are much more clear-cut. Kids that drink milk break fewer bones than those who don't. Finally, on the bad side, research has found that both vegans and vegetarians are at a higher risk for stroke. However, the overall risk is small, around 3 extra cases per 1,000 people over 10 years, and this particular study had many limitations, including quite a small sample, so it's difficult to draw major conclusions from it. So are there any specific health benefits to going vegan? Definitely. A study on over 90,000 people found that vegans are less likely to develop high blood pressure, obesity, type 2 diabetes, some types of cancer, and are more likely to live longer. A vegan diet lowers cholesterol, and many of these foods contain a lot of antioxidant phytonutrients and nitrates versus some animal products which contain more pro-inflammatory fats.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you are struggling with your cholesterol or any type of heart issue, or like you said, some certain types of cancers, like it has been proven, and there are many, many studies about it, that the meat industry is trying to hide that meat is a #1 carcinogen, especially processed meat. So if you're eating sandwich meat and hot dogs and hamburgers that like you don't know where they came from, I mean, anything you buy in the grocery store these days, you really don't know where it comes from. If you're buying these processed meat foods, you are literally putting #1 carcinogens into your body. You are putting cancer into your body. You're clogging your arteries. You're at a much, much greater risk for heart disease and heart issues, and your cholesterol is going to be super high. So if you are really struggling with any of these issues, then you should really consider going on a plant-based diet.
These anti-inflammatory effects are believed to be the reason vegan diets seem to minimize some autoimmune diseases. In fact, Venus Williams, who suffers from Sjogren's syndrome, credits her vegan diet with minimizing the extreme fatigue associated with her condition. Some studies have even found a vegan diet to be one of the healthiest, outperforming even pescatarian and vegetarian diets, likely because of its higher fruit, vegetable, and legume intake. There was up to a 32% lower risk among those with the highest intake of plant-based foods for cardiovascular disease, even after adjusting for age, sex, race, education, health behaviors, alcohol intake, and exercise. So yes, on average, the health of vegans does tend to be better. Of course, it's also possible that vegans are just generally more health conscious to begin with. Vegans do tend to smoke less, drink less alcohol, and exercise more, and whether it's something bad in meat and dairy or helpful in all the extra veggies is yet to be determined. Of course, it's worth pointing out that it's just as easy to be an unhealthy vegan, with all the options for junk and processed food nowadays, so in no way does going vegan necessitate a healthier diet automatically. The biggest question remaining is, can it make you a better athlete? A NERMI study following 8,000 runners from across Europe comparing meat eaters, vegans, and vegetarians is currently testing this idea of improved endurance. Because veganism may boost immunity and aid in recovery and rehabilitation from injury, a lot of athletes are keen to take advantage of these perks. Veggies like beetroot contain nitrates that aid in blood flow and oxygen.
I think this is one of the biggest pros of veganism. If you're like an athlete or you're super active, but you'll notice that you'll just have a lot more energy. Your sugar levels will be a lot more steady. So you're not going to have like those spikes. Like when you, like after you eat a meal, I remember when I used to eat meat, I would eat a meal and I would feel so like sluggish and I would feel like I had that like food coma. Whereas now that I'm vegan, I feel like if I eat a big meal, I never feel like that super over full and I have so much energy and I can like work out longer, I can run faster. And I just feel like definitely it was when I switched to veganism and even vegetarianism, but like it was such a big difference that I noticed it so much.
Transport through the body. But the problem right now is simply the lack of good data. There is very little data to support these claims right now, so studies are ongoing. At the very least, it's been shown that a well-planned vegan diet does meet the nutritional requirements for endurance athletes. In other words, it's just as good at the very least as an omnivorous diet. Whether it's optimal is yet to be determined. At the end of the day, what can we conclude from the available research? Well, on the one hand, a vegan diet is unequivocally better for the environment. And while it's a whole other conversation to talk about the responsibility of corporations and institutions versus individuals, as an individual, it is a simple step that you can take to minimize your impact if that matters to you. When it comes to diet, at worst, there could be some setbacks to your health.
I just want to say, the fact that he says if it matters to you for the environment, I'm sorry, but we are all humans living on this earth. You can see the amount of garbage and litter and pollution that's happening these days. And if you can just eat less meat and dairy to help this beautiful planet that we're living on, I don't see why you wouldn't do it. I think that it should matter to everyone. And maybe it's just because I've traveled a lot, I've seen the world more, so I feel like I care about it deeply. But I feel like everyone should be doing their part to help this planet, because if we're not doing more sustainable choices, if you're not making more sustainable food choices, then what are you doing? You're contributing to all these factors that are just really, really bad for the environment. So yes, please, I hope this helps you to choose veganism, at least start it, at least go halfway, maybe every one meal a day to start, or 1 day a week, or 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever you can manage. But I think that it is really the way of the future and the way that the earth is just going to survive.
But those can typically be mitigated through careful planning and supplementation, and at best, it may actually be better for your overall health and well-being if you put in the effort to do it with intention and health in mind. I hope this video has been eye-opening for those of you who are curious. I know there's a lot of concern around companies capitalizing on claims that may or may not be exaggerated. I think it's totally fair to be skeptical. The vegan market is estimated to hit $24 billion by 2026, so we all need to have our bullshit meters up. If you want to know more, we have an entire podcast episode on veganism.
Okay, so I actually thought this video was very good. I thought it was going to be a lot more against veganism, because the way that the title is, it says vegan lies. But I think it was actually pretty pro-veganism. I think he was very factual. He was telling a lot of true things. So we know it's better for the environment. We know that it's better for your health if you do proper planning. And he didn't really talk about the animals at all in this video, which is kind of unfortunate. But that is also one of the biggest reasons to go vegan. The fact that we're treating animals the way that we're treating them these days, it's not okay. We're putting pigs in gas chambers. We're cutting their throats when they're alive. If you still eat eggs, you're contributing to grinding all the male chicks alive every day. There's so many reasons to go vegan, and especially the dairy industry as well. Like, if you aren't aware that cows don't drink milk or they don't make milk because they're cows, they make milk because they're mothers. We are literally raping cows. We're taking their babies away, and then we're taking the milk from them. And that's just horrible. Like, there's so many studies that show, like, you know, these female cows like hiding their babies if they can, and it's just so sad. And I could never eat dairy again. I could never eat eggs again. And I'm so happy that this video was actually like a little bit more positive than I expected. So let me know in the comments below if you really enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, useful. I would love to do more react videos like this. I thought it was really fun. And yeah, I hope you like this format. It was a little bit different, but thank you so much for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, go subscribe because I'm uploading a new video every single week. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.